Meanwhile, the United States has ordered family members of its embassy staff in Ukraine to leave the country. Washington has authorized the voluntary departure of its non-essential embassy employees. Other US nationals in eastern Ukraine have also been advised to leave. The Biden administration warning them that no evacuation will be possible if the Russians go ahead and invade. The US has also advised its citizens against traveling to Ukraine.
The United States on Sunday said it was ordering the departure of eligible family members of staff from its embassy in Ukraine, and that all U.S. citizens should consider leaving due to the threat of military action from Russia. U.S. and Russian diplomats made no major breakthrough at talks last week, and Moscow has been massing troops on the border with Ukraine. The State Department said it was authorizing the, quote, voluntary departure of U.S. direct hire employees and ordered the departure of eligible family members from Embassy Kyiv due to the continued threat of Russian military action. It added that, quote, U.S. citizens in Ukraine should consider departing now using commercial or other privately available transportation options.
So let's cross live to our correspondent Susan Tehrani, who is joining us live from New York. And Susan, this decision by the US to begin drawing down embassy staff in Kyiv and warning American nationals in Ukraine basically to get out of the country, that is the latest indication that the Biden administration clearly now expects some kind of Russian military operation.
And taking precautions really after what happened with the debacle in Afghanistan, although many and no one expects it to be as chaotic, and no one is drawing any parallels, but perhaps, talking about evacuation and being faulty. But I do want to mention that there is already a quote-unquote level 4 travel advisory against Ukraine, and now the State Department says that we are imposing a level 4 travel advisory. And what that was regarding Ukraine was, first of all, for the coronavirus pandemic, and then second of all, a secondary travel advisory came on that, and that was for a possible Russian invasion, and that was on the State Department website as early as Friday. Now the State Department is admitting that. President Biden did say that he expected Russian President Vladimir Putin to sort of stage some sort of an offensive, and that he, quote unquote, had to at this point during that press conference that he had last week. So that's what the Americans apparently think. Russia continues to deny that it's planning on staging an invasion. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and Susan, let's talk a bit about the tone of the conversation that's underway. The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said on Friday, after his meeting with Secretary of State Antony Blinken, that the United States is engaged in hysteria over Ukraine, and yet Russia is the country with 100,000 troops nestled along Ukraine's border. The Americans, of course, say that the path to diffusing all of this diplomatically is still open, but there's a big distinction in what we're hearing from Washington, D.C. and Russia about efforts to find common cause and de-escalate this crisis.
This was a self-made, according to the United States and its allies, and again, it's depending who you ask at the end of the day, but I think the international community was clear in seeing that this was a self-inflicted and self-made crisis on the part of Russia. Russia staged this crisis on the border of Ukraine, asked for a meeting with President Biden, and then sort of the crisis escalated from there, and these troops started to amass on the border of Ukraine. Some say perhaps after the faulty withdrawal of Afghanistan by the Biden administration, Russia saw sort of an opportunity there that causes, there's a lot to talk about on why Russia decided to stage this incursion during this time. But the United States has continued to call for a diplomatic solution, and then there's that sort of argument on whether or not, again, Russia plans on going for a full-on invasion, or it wants to roll some of its troops into Ukraine on the one hand and get some kind of concession from the United States on the other. But to call the United States hysteric at this point, I don't think would bode well in not only among those who Russia tries to get on its side, or on those on the international community who sort of saw this self-made crisis on the part of Russia develop at this point.
And of course, Joe Biden spent much of his early weeks in office insisting he didn't want to be distracted by the Russians. Vladimir Putin has certainly got his attention now. Susan Tehrani, live for us in New York again today. Thanks very much for being there.